Oh, yes. I would love to explain what codependency is. When I explain codependency, I have a lot of women say things to me like, what is codependent? I'm independent. I'm independent, so I can't be codependent. And it's very important to understand what codependency is before you make that judgment in yourself. A lot of people are very defensive, especially women, when expressing the type of relationship that they're in. They get very defensive about the one that they love. They get very defensive about the decisions that they are making in their lives. So when you say to them, you're showing some traits of codependency, they get very, very defensive. So I want to first give a general expression of what codependency is, and then I'll give you an example of what I feel that codependency is. So codependency is a dysfunctional emotional characteristic trait where the person is in an addictive supportive relationship with a person or people who has addictions or mental emotional dysfunctions, such as drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, women, immaturity, underachievement, or psychological disorders. So in a nutshell, I'd like to say to women, a codependent person is someone who's in an unhealthy emotional addiction to someone with unhealthy addictions. So you're addicted to someone who has addictions.
Right.
So they're not able to put you first in their life. So then what happens is a struggle begins, a struggle of control begins. And people who are showing codependent traits, really what is happening is they're trying to control the relationships in their life. They're looking for what we call LRC, love, respect, and care. So they go through all different types of emotional behaviors to get love and respect and care from the person that they love. Okay, so they have a lot of use a lot of controlling mechanism to get this from this person, not realizing the person can't give this to you because they have love, respect, and care for something else. So it's a battle. It's a struggle between love for yourself and that person having love for something else. Right. So that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
But the saving that we consciously manifest is really what we call a controlling mechanism, which is subconsciously manifest. So outwardly, we think we're helping them. Inwardly, we're trying to control them. Do you understand? So there's levels of control that we try to, and we find it in all. First, we want to understand that some of the most intelligent, strongest women suffer from this trait. The reason why is because we're usually matriarchs in our family. We're the head of household. You know, in today's society, we're the end all be all when it comes to the family. We're bringing in the money and the bread and everything else, and then we enter in relationships. Insufficient relationships, unhealthy relationships with people who have problems, and we figure, if we just kind of fix them and move them around a little bit, they can be what we believe to be ideal relationships in our head, not realizing we really don't have the control of these things because this person don't actually have control of their own problems.
Right.
So it's a struggle of control. They say that codependence is a trait of manipulation. They call it the love manipulators. They're known as the love manipulators. So we use tools in order to get the person to get in line. And really, there's really no line. We really need to understand that there's no line here, and that we need to first inwardly control what's going on with our own emotions and find inner peace of self before we can control anybody else. Oh, yes. Well, let's start with the codependent relationship. If you realize you're going through an area where you feel like you're losing control of circumstances, you have to take an inward look at what's really going on. And if there's a problem in the relationship and you're internalizing it and feeling like you can control it or manipulate it or or even feel like it's just going to go away, you have to realize that that's a very unhealthy relationship. You know when you're in a healthy relationship, because there's boundaries that can't be crossed. Then there's a communication, which is healthy, love, which is healthy, respect, honor, care, the love, respect, and care is actually have a healthy balance between both parties. So the difference is, in a healthy relationship, you realize that there's really no struggle. Healthy relationships aren't any struggle. Trust and believe, we all have problems. You get in a relationship and you're going to have your moments, but if you're in a healthy relationship, you're able to communicate yourself out of these struggles and these problems. And a codependent usually get into these struggles and they feel like they're losing control. But what is control? You shouldn't have to struggle for any type of control in a relationship. That's when you know you're suffering from some type of codependent trait, and you need to inwardly look at your own inner self. What's causing these feelings inside of myself to feel like I need to control the circumstance that seems to be getting out of control? Usually, when a person that we're seeking out have any type of emotional dysfunction, psychological dysfunction, addictions, they're not really looking for someone to take them outside of that self. That's unconsciously. They're not looking for someone to take them outside of that. They're really looking for someone to accept them for that. When they find that trait in a codependent woman, because a codependent woman initially, because all she's seeking is love, respect, and care, she usually kind of push the major portion of what's wrong in that relationship to the side, which is the addiction or the womanizing or, the pornography, any type of dysfunction that person have, we tend to put to the side and try to normalize it. And try to normalize it for that relationship to look normal. So the person knows that. So usually these type of people gravitate towards each other. A lot of times you'll hear people say, a lot of times in a lot of books, if you read up on this, you find that a lot of codependent people attract narcissistic people. Okay? Codependent people usually attract narcissistic people because a narcissist will know that, can actually see what this person really is trying to hide, this insecurity within themselves. The narcissistic will see that. It will be very apparent, and they can use that as a tool to be able to use the codependent person. So usually things that might seem actually very subconscious is it illuminates. It illuminates. You can really see it resonates. People will see that you are in a relationship that's dysfunctional, even though you're trying to normalize it. People will know that you're in a dysfunctional relationship, and we want to be superwoman. We want to pretend like, okay, this relationship is going well. There's no problems here. And then behind your back, people saying, yeah, but he's a drunk. Yes, but he's an alcoholic. How can you normalize that relationship? Because you're trying to control the circumstances. You're trying to control what people see in the whole entire relationship. Oh, absolutely. The thing is, everybody feel like we're coming into a time where people feel like they need someone. The need to be needed is the major problem with people in a relationship. If you don't feel like you need someone, you won't be susceptible to people using you. You won't be readily trying to push things to the side or overlooking an issue because you feel like, oh, I just need to be needed or I need to be loved. So, I mean, it's definitely more women than men. Because women tend to have a more of a need for love, respect, and care. But you definitely also can see that in a lot of men as well. So when you have this need to be needed trait, it actually manifests codependent tendency within yourself. So you have to watch that. It's a monitoring system within yourself. Why do I feel I need to be needed? Why do I feel I need to be loved? Why do I need someone to need me? Or that's really what the whole finding out who you are portion comes from, getting over this dysfunction. Oh, no. You will find it. You can find it anywhere, honey. You will find it in the grandmother who's spelling out her son who go to jail every 5 months. You know, you'll find that in the aunt who's saying her niece is perfect, but she's fighting her niece's battles. You'll find it's just any interpersonal relationship where you know a person is having an unhealthy balance in their life, and you feel that you're coming to their care, you feel you're coming to their rescue, and you're trying to rescue this person, but they need steps, they need help themselves, but you're overlooking their deficiencies, right, in life. Right. So, well, first I want to kind of explain that there are two types of codependence. Okay. There's a passive and there's an active codependent. Okay. So with a passive codependent, they are usually they're emotionally charged people. Okay, and they're not likely to get into any physical confrontation, but out of fear of losing physical control, they're more likely to masterfully create hidden agendas to manipulate their emotional target, the target being a significant other or interpersonal relationship, to comply with their need for LRC. So what I mean by that is they will ignore traits, they will create dramatic circumstances, fake illnesses, or they'll lie, they'll victimize themselves to get the person to love them. They're very dramatic. When you hear people say she's a drama queen, she's a drama queen. She's trying to seek some type of attention in her life, so people can feel sorry for her, and she feels like she's controlling love, respect, and care in her life, and the type of love she gets and the type of care she gets. Right. So that's the passive kind. So I'm sure everybody knows someone who's like that, but what is the need? Why do they feel the need to be loved, or they trying to pull for love? So that's what the passive kind is. Now, an aggressive, an active codependent, usually they're the type who they're physically confrontational. They're verbally confrontational. They demand respect. They demand, I'm demanding this love. I'm demanding this care. Look at me. Do what I tell you to do. Go where I tell you to go. And they are, usually they're very financially independent. You find that in a lot of women who are the matriarchs of the family, very verbal, very boisterous. If you hear that about some women. And in a relationship, they like to have control. So usually they are, So really, they're verbal, and their manipulation is to make the actual target feel bad. So if they have a relationship with someone who's addicted to drugs, right? Tell them, you're a crackhead. They want that person. They'll tell their significant other that. They'll make them feel bad in front of people, saying so that this person can actually feel lower in themselves, right, to actually stay within the relationship. So they're saying you can't go anywhere because nobody wants you, because you're in drugs, you do this, you do that. And so people would often ask, well, why would you tell your significant other, he's this and he's that, and then you stay in the relationship with this person? Right. It actually makes no sense. So the people in both of these two type of traits have the same thing in common. They feel like they're powerless to leave the relationship. They're saying, I'm in this relationship and I can't go nowhere. This is it for me. I don't know why I'm not out of this relationship. All I know is that I want this person, regardless of their drug habits, their addictions, womanizing behavior, them not treating me right, them not coming home at night. I don't know why I can't change this, but this is who I want. So they feel like they're powerless to leave the relationship. They prefer to stay in an emotionally unhealthy relationship. Okay. So those are the two traits for codependency. Okay. So usually you'll know which one you kind of which the person would fit themselves into. But it's just a matter of kind of internalizing these traits and saying, what am I doing? Why am I going to this extent to get this relationship to be on track? Why am I going through this extent, this emotional roller coaster I'm putting myself into? See, that's what we got to realize. Codependents put themselves into these emotional roller coasters. They're not powerless. They're powerless to actually control their actions. They're powerless. They're not powerless to control their actions. They're not powerless to control who they love. They can't control these things, okay? But they're trying to control the wrong things. Usually, it's a dormant trait. It's a dormant trait depending on what we suffered from in our childhoods. Were we neglected? You know, were our fathers alcoholic, drug abusers? You know, what went on in the home? So that lies dormant. And then the type of relationships we put ourselves into will make us manifest these dormant behaviors from our childhood, or these dormant feelings from our childhood. So it's a manifestation. So when you get an unhealthy relationship, it almost reminds you of what you went through as a child. So a dramatic scenario kind of ensues, and then you're saying, oh my, you know, you don't really know what's happening here. You're kind of like in this smog. So then you're going through the motion, not realizing that they're all just real feelings from your childhood that you have to look into and internalize, and kind of, you know, look into and figure out, what am I going through? I'm with I'm with a person who's addicted on drugs, and my father was a drug addict. And look at my reaction. You know, so it's definitely a cycle that you got to look into. Narcissistic behavior is also actually you can't speak about codependent behavior and not know a little bit about narcissistic behavior. Right. And what's really ironic is that people tend to confuse narcissism with codependent. Yes. And the reason why I say that is because there's a me factor. I'm gonna quote unquote say me. Really what is that is when I say me, narcissism seek the me factor in themselves. So do codependents. But the narcissists are putting themselves first, me first, and the codependents are putting everything above themselves, okay, with the objective of getting their needs met. Right. Okay, so it's a very fine line between codependent and narcissism. Okay, both have the emotional factors of control mechanism. And the narcissists, they use malicious control and deceiving control, and they use tools to get a person up under that spell. So it's a very harsh thing to be involved with the person who have narcissistic behavior, because they're not really in the relationship to please you. They're solely in a relationship to please themselves. What can you bring into that relationship to make me happy? What can you do for me? What money you bring into me? You know, how are you going to benefit me? Right. That's narcissist. Right. There's a lot of women who feel like they're in a powerless circumstance in their life. And just the other day, like I said, even myself, because I'm actually a person with codependent traits. You cannot speak about a topic you have not been a part of. Right. Okay. You know, people don't want to be coached from a coach who have never actually lived in the circumstance. You know, I'm not getting my facts from a book. I'm getting my facts from my own personal life and my interpersonal relationships and people who I've coached. So you're not powerless. Okay, you can change yourself. And the other day, I put a post up a couple of months ago, and I said, there go my codependent traits flaring up again. Okay? It was then where I needed to do the work. It was a process of doing the work. I needed to internalize my behavior, look into my behavior, and then work on what was bringing up these feelings of trying to control circumstance. So I always want women, when they see something kind of coming up emotionally, to look at it and then do the work on it. So I hope that helps bring some people to light on this trait and bring awareness to it. So. Okay, well, well, I got some steps. These steps are very clear. They're to the point. First step is, well, there's five, and one, there's five with an additional one. Okay, so the first step is self-actualize. Self-actualize. You cannot, you do not say, well, that ain't me. That ain't me. But you see all the products of you within the lines. Okay. Self-actualize. What am I going through? What am I internalizing? What is going on? What am I manifesting? What am I holding dormant in my life? And self-actualize these traits so you can work on these traits. Okay. Because the process is, you're not going to wake up overnight and say, you know what, I'm not codependent anymore, but yet you're in a relationship that's literally, creating these dramatic circumstances in your life, okay? Right. And you're going through them every single day. So self-actualize. Be that person outside your own window looking in on your circumstance, and then start to clean house, okay? So self-actualize. The second step is letting go of the control levers. Letting go of the control levers. You don't need to have control of nobody. The only person you need to control is how you react to a circumstance. Okay? Why am I saying that? Why am I doing that? Why do I need to create this whole dramatic scenario just for him to say I love you? Why am I doing that right now? Right. And look into that. What is going on with me right now that I let go of the control levers? Give it up. Just give it up. Stop trying to move people around for your own internal need to be loved or cared for. Okay. Okay. So this is that would derive into this, which is coach your codependent flare-ups. Coach them. Okay. If you feel like you're going through a moment, you gotta take a moment. You gotta really, like I said before, the me factor. You gotta have a healthy me factor. Okay, so you gotta coach those, I'm gonna do this to get that. Instead, I'm gonna do this for me. Okay, so the next one is ask yourself, am I doing this to be recognized? Am I doing this to be recognized, or I'm doing it because I want to? A lot of codependent people feel like they need to do things to be recognized. Okay, I'm gonna give you this money, but that's, what are you doing for me? What is you going to do for me? Or do you recognize that I gave you $100 yesterday? The manipulation is it's the manipulation. We do things for the recognition of LRC. Right. Here, we only do it to be recognized. We only do it for results. So let go of that I'm doing this because I want something. So take the word because out of your equation. Okay. And the next one is self-love, need for the right reasons, and just spend a lot more time with yourself, because the interpersonal relationships that we have, we start to create our whole lives around these interpersonal relationships where the sun, moon, and stars is for this person. So we lose a piece of ourselves in these interpersonal relationships. We don't know who we are anymore. Okay, the me factor is there, but we're tying our identity into someone else. So what happens is when they take that piece with them, we have no more identity. Right. Okay, so we start finding out who you are. And the last one, like I said, the additional one is do the work. It's a consistent process. It's a moment by moment monitoring your actions process, which I suffer from on a day-to-day sometimes, when I say the flare-ups at the beginning. But then I'm gonna do the work. It's the small things. Like if your significant other say, oh, I'm just running to the store, and then 2 hours later, people are like, where is he? Oh no. Why? What takes you so long to go to the store? Right. Would you milk the cow in the next state? You ain't got to ask them questions. It's not in your control. It's not in your control. You see what I'm saying? And if you can't control that, let it go. Right. Do the work. You don't need to call him. Let it go. Okay. So it's a process. So those are the steps. And I would love to go deeper into anybody who wants to know more in the process and the work. Okay. To do more of the work. They don't really what we talked before about subconscious and right. Mm-hmm. It's like they lose a piece of themselves and then they go through the motion. They don't do any type of self-actualization. So they fall. It's like they fold into the drama. Mm-hmm. And they don't take the time to step back, breathe, and do the self-actualization work. Right. To the step. So it's like they when you fall into your emotions and you let them control you, that's the process of failing at this whole codependency. Mm-hmm. So you really have to always take a step back and stop and self-actualize. What are you doing wrong?
Right.
Because people just get overcome with their emotions, and that's in any emotional dysfunction. They get overcome by it and they let it control them instead of them controlling it. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's the reason why people would fail at it, because they just go with the emotion and go with the emotion at the time. And then they suffer from that particular trait, and then it manifests itself and it becomes very ugly. I would stress that people first, if you're going to help somebody, if you're going to help a significant other overcome their addictions, their alcoholism, womanizing behavior, do it for the right reasons. But if it's not helping itself, be strong enough to leave the relationship so that you can start the groundwork for having healthy interpersonal relationships in your life. It's okay to disconnect with people so that you can have a healthier aspect for yourself. Sometimes other people control how we live, our emotions and how we live, and we get so out of whack. And that ties into my toxic relationship package. But what I'm trying to say is we let these emotions overtake us, and sometimes we have to disconnect with those type of people because they create these switches in our life. Mm-hmm. And we have unhealthy reactions to these people. So be healthy enough to let it go, or be strong enough to help them, but help them in a way where it's not you controlling the circumstances.
Right.
Help them have a healthier aspect in life so that you can have a healthier relationship. I'm always preaching about getting relationships stronger together. I never really try to preach, just leave, girl, just leave, girl. Yeah. Because if you really love someone, you don't want them addicted to drugs. You don't want them on alcoholism, and you don't want that to be something that you control for them to stay with you.
Right,
so
exactly.
Find a way to help this person so that you can have a healthy, grounded relationship together. Mm-hmm. So really the blocks would be overall just don't let anybody block you from finding true peace. Mm-hmm. Do everything necessary to find true peace within yourself so that you can have healthy relationships with other people. Because if you're not grounded within yourself, how can you help anybody else?
Exactly. Awesome. All right.
I would say write down the control levers. Write them down. Mm-hmm. What am I trying to control in these relationships in my life? What am I overlooking in these relationships in my life that are unhealthy for me? Mm-hmm. Write them down. Who are you in a codependent relationship with? Who do you tie your identity to? And what are their weaknesses? Write it down. Because sometimes we have to take an outside look on it. Mm-hmm. I have a diary which I've been writing in since I was a little child, and sometimes looking into those relationships from the outside helped me every single day as my process went on. Right. So the action step is finding out what it is that are causing these traits in yourself, write them down, mm-hmm. and then have a healthier look on it and self-actualize that behavior. Mm-hmm. So there's steps to everything that you write down. There's steps to take for all the levers that you write down on. There's steps to take for that.
Awesome. All right. And tell our viewers how they can connect with you on social media.
Okay. So I have Ivy Revined at Facebook. That's Ivy Revined. I had to spell it. I have to always spell it for people. So that's Ivy Revined at Facebook. It is also Ivy is a poet. And at Instagram, you can find me on Instagram. Of course, ivyrevined.com. You can always leave me a message, and I will always love to respond to you. And you can also send me an email at ivyrevined.com.